The phone rang just as I was slipping on my old cardigan, the one with frayed sleeves but a warmth that wrapped me like a second skin. It was Emily, my only daughter, my everything. For 45 years I had sacrificed sleep, dreams, and even my youth just to see her smile. But her voice that day wasn't the warm, sweet melody of a daughter's love. It was sharp, cold, detached. "Mom," she said with no hesitation, "we're going tomorrow. Europe. First-class tickets. And don't worry about money. I sold your beach house and your car. We needed the cash." Then there was a laugh. Quick, almost mocking. And before I could even breathe, the line went dead. My hands trembled as I lowered the phone, but my face held a smile. A smile that would have unsettled anyone who knew me. But Emily didn't know me anymore. She had forgotten the woman who raised her. She had forgotten the sacrifices. She had forgotten the blood, sweat, and tears that bought her every luxury. And most of all, she had forgotten the one thing I never stopped teaching her. Never betray the hand that feeds you, because betrayal comes with a price. For the first few minutes, I sat motionless in the chair by the window. Outside, the sunset bled into the ocean waves, painting the sky in fiery orange. That beach house she sold, it wasn't just bricks and mortar. It was my sanctuary, the place where I had hidden secrets. The kind of secrets no real estate agent or lawyer could ever put on paper. Secrets worth far more than a plane ticket. Memories flickered in my mind like old film reels. Emily's first steps across the living room floor, her laughter echoing off the walls, her little hand tugging at my sleeve begging for ice cream. How had the same child grown into a woman who could strip me bare without flinching? I wasn't angry. Not exactly. I was patient. That was my gift. Emily thought she had outsmarted me. That was her first mistake. She thought money was the only thing of value in that house. That was her second. What she didn't know, what she could never even imagine, was that selling that house had triggered something I had been preparing for years, like dominoes set up in silence waiting for the smallest push. And now her greed had knocked the first piece down. I rose from the chair, my bones stiff but my resolve sharper than steel. The world had always underestimated me. To Emily, I was just a fragile aging woman with nothing left to give. But beneath this frail skin lived a mind that had survived wars, betrayals, and heartbreaks she couldn't even dream of. I walked slowly to the old chest in my bedroom, the one I had kept locked for decades. Inside were folders, documents, photographs, pieces of a puzzle that Emily didn't even know existed. And in the very bottom, wrapped in cloth, was the letter that held the key to everything. I pressed the envelope to my lips, whispering, "Thank you, Emily. You've just opened the door." The night passed with me awake, planning. Emily thought she had won, but the game had only just begun. I could already see her, boarding that luxury flight, sipping champagne with her husband, laughing about how easy it had been to fool her silly old mother. Little did she know I had already set traps in motion. The money from the beach house? It would lead them straight into hands they couldn't escape. The papers I had hidden in the safe? Already sent to people who would make sure Emily and her husband's names were whispered in every corner of power, but not in admiration, in fear. I could feel the years of silence breaking inside me. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg her to love me again. No, I was going to let her drown in the very ocean of greed she thought she was smart enough to navigate. The clock struck midnight. I sat at the kitchen table, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. My hands were steady now, my heart calm. Revenge, after all, isn't born from rage. It's born from patience. And patience was something I had mastered. Emily had taken my house, my car, my trust. But what she didn't know was that in doing so, she had given me everything I needed. Tomorrow she would be flying into a storm she couldn't escape. A storm I had been crafting for years. As I closed my eyes, I whispered the same words I would whisper every night from now on. "Emily, my darling girl, you should never have sold my beach house." The morning air smelled of rain, though the sky was clear. Emily stood in front of her mirror, holding up a silk dress against her body, tilting her chin with satisfaction. She looked radiant and she knew it. The kind of beauty that money could buy, polished by stylists and sharpened by her own arrogance. Her husband, Daniel, leaned against the doorway scrolling through his phone, his voice careless. "Did your mother cry when you told her?" Emily smirked, tossing the dress across the bed. She sounded shocked, maybe even broken, but she'll get over it. She always does. That woman would give me her last breath if I asked for it. Selling her house was easier than I thought. Honestly, she should be thanking me. That old place was falling apart anyway. Daniel laughed without looking up. Well, at least it's gone now. The money hit the account last night. Between that and what we already had, Europe will be a dream. No more stressing about bills or debts. He finally met her eyes, smirking. Your mom basically funded our freedom. Emily walked over and kissed him on the cheek. Exactly. And the best part? She has no idea what we've really been planning. By the time she figures it out, we'll be living a life she could never even imagine. But what Emily didn't know was that someone else had already entered the game. The money she believed was safely sitting in their account had a shadow attached to it. The account number had been flagged, rerouted, tangled into wires and codes she didn't understand. And at the very center of that web was me. I had woken at dawn, sipping my tea with steady hands, watching the birds peck at crumbs outside my window. To Emily, I was powerless. To the world, I was invisible. That's how I liked it. Invisibility is the strongest weapon. By the time Emily boarded her flight, her entire financial foundation would start to crumble, piece by piece. At the airport, the terminal buzzed with energy. Families rushing, children laughing, businessmen muttering into phones. Emily strutted through with her designer heels clicking against the polished floor, Daniel wheeling their expensive luggage behind her. People glanced at her, some admiring, some envious. She thrived on it. Emily had always needed an audience. 2 first-class tickets to Paris, she told the attendant at the counter, sliding her passport across with a rehearsed smile. The woman typed quickly, then frowned slightly. I'm sorry, ma'am, but there seems to be a hold on your card. Emily's smile faltered. That's impossible. Try again. The woman did, but the same message blinked on her screen. You might want to call your bank, she said politely. Daniel pulled Emily aside, lowering his voice. What's going on? Emily waved a dismissive hand. It's fine. Just a glitch. We have plenty of cards. She reached into her purse, pulling out another. This one went through, and within minutes they were boarding. Emily smoothed her hair and whispered to herself, see? Nothing to worry about. But she was wrong. Very wrong. Up in the sky as the plane sliced through the clouds, Daniel ordered champagne while Emily flipped through a glossy travel magazine. Her mind wandered to boutiques on the Champs-Élysées, rooftop dinners in Rome, and sun-soaked afternoons in Barcelona. She pictured posting photos online, showing off to friends, proving that she had won at life. She didn't know that at that exact moment, her phone back in airplane mode was filling with alerts she would only see when they landed. Messages from the bank. Emails marked urgent. Back at my kitchen table, I checked the screen in front of me. One of the folders from the locked chest lay open, filled with codes and account details. It had taken years to build the connections, years to plant the right seeds, but now everything was blooming. I leaned back, whispering to myself, safe travels, Emily. Enjoy your champagne. It will be your last taste of sweetness for a very long time. The plane touched down in Paris hours later. Emily and Daniel stepped into the bright, bustling airport, alive with languages and colors. They looked like royalty. Emily's sunglasses hiding her eyes, Daniel's watch gleaming under the lights. But when Emily finally switched on her phone, her face drained of color. Notifications popped up one after another. Suspicious activity detected. Account frozen. Immediate action required. Daniel leaned over her shoulder, his jaw tightening. What the hell is this? Emily's hand shook as she scrolled. It doesn't make sense. Everything's gone. All of it. Daniel grabbed the phone, his face darkening as he read. No, this isn't possible. His eyes shot to Emily, sharp as knives. What did you do? Emily stammered. Nothing. I don't understand. It was supposed to be fine. But she understood deep down. Somewhere inside she knew. Her mother wasn't as powerless as she thought. That night, as they sat in their hotel room surrounded by luggage they couldn't afford to keep, Emily stared out at the glittering Eiffel Tower. For the first time in her life, she felt something she couldn't control clawing at her chest. Fear. And far away across the ocean, I sat in my quiet kitchen, smiling to myself. This was only the beginning. The Eiffel Tower glittered like a crown in the distance, but Emily couldn't see its beauty anymore. Her hands trembled around the hotel room's glass of wine, untouched on the table. Daniel paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair, his face red with fury. All the money gone. Do you hear me, Emily? Gone. Frozen, stolen, whatever this is. We came here to live like kings, and now we can't even pay for this room. Emily's voice cracked. Stop shouting. Someone will hear us. Daniel spun on her, his voice a hiss. I don't care who hears us. You said your mother was weak. You said she wouldn't fight back. So tell me, how the hell did this happen? The words stung sharper than any blade. Emily had always controlled Daniel, always fed him confidence when he faltered. But now in his eyes she saw something new, doubt. Maybe even hatred. She tried to steady herself, lifting her chin. It's just a mistake. I'll fix it. I'll call the bank tomorrow. But even as she spoke, her phone buzzed again with a new email. Urgent. Account terminated. Legal action pending. Emily's stomach twisted. She turned the phone face down, hiding it from Daniel, but the fear had already seeped into her veins. Across the ocean, I sat in my quiet house, the old chest open beside me. Each step Emily took now was carefully designed, mapped out long before she ever betrayed me. I had allies she didn't know existed. Men and women who owed me favors, people who worked in banks, in law offices, in places where one small request could mean a tidal wave of destruction. Emily had thought the beach house was just a crumbling piece of real estate. She had no idea it was the keystone holding her false empire together. The next morning, Paris woke with the hum of traffic and the scent of fresh bread drifting from corner bakeries. Emily and Daniel slipped into the lobby, their clothes wrinkled, their eyes shadowed from a sleepless night. At the reception desk, Daniel forced a smile. We'll extend our stay. Another week. The receptionist clicked her keyboard, then frowned. I'm sorry, monsieur, but your card has been declined. Daniel's jaw clenched. Try again. She tried. Same result. Emily pulled out another card. Declined. Another. Declined. Each attempt felt like a dagger. Guests in line behind them began to whisper, their eyes curious, judgmental. Emily's cheeks burned. Finally, the receptionist gave a small, apologetic shrug. Perhaps you can provide cash? Cash. The word echoed in Emily's ears like thunder. They had none. Not a single euro. Daniel grabbed her arm, pulling her aside, his voice sharp. Do you understand what's happening? We can't even pay for this damn room. They'll throw us out like beggars. Emily's throat closed, but she forced herself to whisper. It's her. It's my mother. She did this. Daniel's eyes darkened. Your mother? That old woman? Don't be ridiculous. But Emily knew. Deep down she knew. Her mother's silence on the phone, that strange pause, the words she hadn't said. It all came rushing back. Her mother wasn't weak. She never had been. She had been patient. Too patient. They left the hotel humiliated, dragging their luggage down the street. Paris, once dazzling, now felt cruel, its beauty mocking them. Daniel cursed under his breath, while Emily's mind raced. We just need time, she told him. I'll call the real estate agent. The sale from the beach house, it must still be processing. Maybe we can get the funds. But when she finally reached the agent, his voice was clipped, professional. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do, ma'am. The sale has been flagged. Legal authorities have frozen the transfer. It's out of our hands. Emily's heart pounded. Flagged? Why? On what grounds? I'm not at liberty to say. But I suggest you speak with your lawyer. The call ended. Emily's knees nearly buckled. She clutched Daniel's arm, whispering, It's her. I know it. My mother set this up. She's punishing me. Daniel shoved her hand away. His face twisted with anger. Then fix it. Or I swear, Emily, I'll walk away and leave you to clean up your own mess. His words cut deeper than she expected. For the first time, she realized Daniel wasn't with her for love. He was with her for the money. Without it, she was nothing to him. That night, as they huddled in a tiny budget hostel far from the glitz of the city, Emily couldn't sleep. She stared at the cracked ceiling, hearing the faint laughter of travelers in the hall. Every sound reminded her of what she had lost. She thought of her mother, sitting in that quiet house by the ocean sipping tea, smiling in that strange way. Cross the ocean, that's exactly what I was doing. The envelope lay open on the table, the letter spread out before me. The words were old, written decades ago, but powerful enough to destroy everything Emily had built. Soon, she would learn that the house she sold wasn't hers to sell at all. And when the truth surfaced, she wouldn't just lose money. She would lose everything. I whispered into the silence as though Emily could hear me from across the sea. You've only just begun to pay, my darling girl. You sold my house, but you sold your soul with it. Emily woke to the sound of sirens wailing faintly in the Paris streets. For a moment, she thought it was a dream, but when she sat up in the narrow hostel bed, the reality of her situation came crashing back. The itchy sheets, the cracked window, the stale smell of smoke from the hallway. It was a far cry from the luxury she had imagined. Daniel was already awake, hunched over the tiny desk with his laptop open, his face lit by the cold glow of the screen. His jaw was tight, his eyes furious. It's worse than we thought, he said without looking at her. Emily rubbed her eyes. What do you mean worse? Daniel spun the laptop toward her. Headlines glared across the screen. Property sale under investigation. Funds seized in laundering probe. Couple wanted for questioning. Emily's stomach dropped. That's impossible. We didn't launder anything. It was just the house. Daniel slammed his fist on the desk. Do you think anyone cares? The money went through offshore accounts. The authorities think we're part of something bigger. They're going to come after us, Emily. And this, he jabbed a finger at the headlines, is all because of you. His words stung like acid. Emily's throat tightened. Don't you dare put this all on me. You were part of it. You told me to sell. You wanted the money too. Daniel's eyes were ice. I wanted a future. You brought me into this mess. If your mother set us up, then you're the reason we're drowning. The mention of her mother made Emily's skin crawl. She could see her face, calm and knowing, sipping tea in that quiet house. The realization hit her like a blade. Her mother wasn't just letting this happen. She had orchestrated it. In that moment across the ocean, I sat in my chair with the morning sun filtering through the curtains. The phone on my table buzzed with a new message. Confirmed. Authorities notified. They will act soon. I allowed myself a small smile. Everything was falling into place exactly as planned. Emily and Daniel tried to walk the streets of Paris unnoticed, but paranoia clung to them like shadows. Every police siren, every glance from a stranger made Emily's chest tighten. They ducked into cafes, avoided busy squares, lived in constant fear of the knock on the door. Daniel's patience thinned by the hour. One afternoon, as they sat in a dingy cafe sipping bitter coffee they could barely afford, Daniel leaned in close, his voice low. I can't do this anymore. I didn't sign up to be hunted. Emily's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's better if we split. If they find us together, we're done. If I go my own way, maybe I can survive this. Her hand shot across the table, gripping his wrist. No. Don't you dare leave me. We're in this together. But his gaze was cold. We were together when there was money. Now, you're a liability. He yanked his hand free. Emily's chest burned, anger rising to mask her fear. You ungrateful coward. You'd be nothing without me. My mother raised me alone, sacrificed everything, and now you're both treating me like I'm worthless. I won't let you walk away. Her voice trembled on the last words, betraying the truth. She was terrified of being left alone. Meanwhile, I sat with the letter in my lap, tracing the faded ink with my finger. The letter was from my late husband, written long before Emily was old enough to understand. In it, he had left the beach house solely in my name, with stipulations that tied it to a trust. Legally, Emily had no right to sell it. The sale she thought she had so cleverly executed was a crime from the very start. That was the piece I had always kept hidden. That was the weapon I knew one day I might need. And Emily, in her arrogance, had handed me the perfect reason to use it. That night in Paris, Emily couldn't sleep. Daniel had stormed out hours earlier, leaving her alone in the creaking hostel room. She lay staring at the ceiling, her phone clutched in her hand. Messages kept pouring in. Banks demanding explanations, Lawyers warning of charges, journalists sniffing for scandal. She felt the world caving in on her, every escape ceiling shut. She whispered into the dark, her voice breaking, "Mom, what are you doing to me?" But across the sea I was not whispering. I was writing. Each letter, each call, each contact I reached out to was tightening the noose. Emily had betrayed me, stolen from me, humiliated me. And now she would learn the one lesson she had refused to believe. A mother's patience is endless, but her vengeance is merciless. The following morning, Emily awoke to the sound of a heavy knock at her door. Her blood froze. She stumbled to her feet, heart racing as Daniel burst in behind her, pale and sweating. "They're here," he hissed. "The police." Emily's breath caught in her throat. In that instant she knew. The game her mother had started was far from over. It was only tightening its grip. The knock grew louder, echoing through the thin, hostile walls. Emily's chest heaved as she pressed her back against the door, as though her frail body could keep the world out. Daniel cursed under his breath, pacing like a trapped animal. "Open it, Emily. If you don't, they'll break it down." She shook her head violently. No, maybe it's not them. Maybe it's just another guest." The knock turned into pounding. Then a deep voice thundered from the other side. "Police! Open the door!" Emily's knees nearly buckled. Her fingers fumbled with the lock, and when the door swung open, 2 uniformed officers stood there, stern and expressionless. Behind them, a woman in a dark suit, her eyes sharp as blades, flashed her badge. "Emily Carter? Daniel Ross?" the woman asked. Neither of them spoke. Emily felt the air thick in her lungs. Finally, Daniel stepped forward, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "What's this about?" The woman's gaze didn't waver. "We need to speak with you regarding financial irregularities connected to a property sale in the United States. Please come with us." Emily's voice broke. "Irregularities? That's ridiculous. It was my property. I had every right." The officer cut her off. "Ma'am, if you resist, we'll have to escort you by force." Daniel muttered under his breath. "Just go. Don't make it worse." The next hour blurred into chaos. They were led out of the hostile past curious eyes, shoved into the back of a police van, driven through streets that once felt magical but now looked like a prison. At the station they were separated, Daniel dragged one way, Emily another. For the first time since this nightmare began, Emily was alone. They put her in a gray room with a single table and 2 chairs. The walls felt too close, the light above too bright. She wrung her hands together until her knuckles turned white. After what felt like hours, the woman in the dark suit entered, setting down a thick folder on the table. She opened it with deliberate calm. Inside were papers, photos, documents, evidence. Emily tried to steady her voice. "You're making a mistake. That house was mine. I sold it. That's not a crime." The woman raised a brow. "Not a crime? The property was in your mother's name, not yours. The transfer was illegal, fraudulent, and the funds have already been connected to suspicious accounts. Offshore shell companies, movements consistent with laundering. Do you deny any of this?" Emily's mouth went dry. She opened her lips to speak, but nothing came out. The woman leaned closer, her voice cold. "I'll give you a chance. Tell us who helped you. Tell us where the money went. Cooperate, and maybe you won't spend the rest of your life behind bars." Emily's mind spun. Who helped her? No one. Or at least that's what she thought. But in her gut she knew. Her mother had been pulling the strings all along, twisting every step to look like Emily was guilty. She whispered almost to herself, "It's her. My mother." The woman frowned. "Excuse me." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "She did this. She set me up. She wanted me to fall. You don't understand, she's not what she seems." The woman snapped the folder shut. "Your mother isn't under investigation. You are. Think carefully before you waste my time with excuses." When the interrogation ended, Emily was left shaking in the chair, her body cold with dread. Across the building, Daniel was facing his own questions. Unlike Emily, he wasn't loyal. When pressed, he began to talk. He told them how Emily had insisted on the sale, how she promised the money was clean, how he had been misled by her. He painted himself as a victim. By the time they were released, Pending further inquiry, the damage was done. Emily could see it in Daniel's eyes as they stepped into the night air. He had chosen himself over her. They walked in silence through the streets, their footsteps echoing. Finally, Emily broke. "You talked, didn't you?" Daniel didn't deny it. "I'm not going to prison for you, Emily. If throwing you under the bus keeps me free, then so be it." Her mouth fell open, her chest aching as though the words had stabbed her. "After everything, after all we've done together, you'd betray me?" He met her eyes with nothing but coldness. "You betrayed your own mother. Why should I expect better?" The words cut deeper than any knife. Emily stumbled back, her legs weak, her vision blurring. For the first time in her life, she realized she was utterly, devastatingly alone. And across the ocean, I closed the letter I had been rereading for the 100th time. My plan was working beautifully. Emily thought she was fighting the police, Daniel, the system. But in truth, she was fighting me. And I had already won the opening moves. I looked out at the waves crashing against the shore where the beach house once stood. My sanctuary was gone, yes, but so was Emily's safety. Soon she would lose everything else she clung to, her freedom, her marriage, her pride. I whispered to the night, my voice carried by the wind. "You thought you could strip me of everything, Emily. But all you've done is hand me the power to destroy you." The rain came down in sheets as Emily staggered through the streets, her coat soaked, her hair plastered to her face. She had nowhere to go. Daniel had vanished the moment they left the police station, muttering something about needing space. But she knew what that meant. He was gone. Just like that. She ducked into a dimly lit cafe, trembling as she ordered a coffee she could barely afford. Sitting at the corner table, she wrapped her arms around herself and stared at the window, watching raindrops race down the glass. Her reflection looked unfamiliar. Eyes hollow, skin pale, lips trembling. She looked like someone who was already half broken. Emily reached for her phone, desperate for reassurance. She dialed Daniel's number again and again, but it went straight to voicemail. Finally, he picked up. His voice was calm, almost detached. "Emily, stop calling me." Her chest tightened. "Daniel, please. We're in this together. You can't leave me now. Not when everything is falling apart." There was a pause, then his voice, cold and sharp. "I warned you. I told you not to drag me into this. But you didn't listen. You lied to me. You said the house was yours, that the money was safe. You ruined everything." Tears burned her eyes. "I did it for us. For our future." "Our future," he scoffed. "There is no future, Emily. Not with you. I already talked to the investigators. I told them the truth. You'll be lucky if they don't lock you up for 20 years. Don't call me again." The line went dead. Emily dropped the phone onto the table, her whole body shaking. The betrayal was complete. Her husband, the man she thought she could count on, had abandoned her without hesitation. For the first time, she felt the sharp bite of karma. Across the cafe, a man in a dark jacket watched her intently. She didn't notice him at first, too consumed by her grief. But when she finally looked up, their eyes met. He raised his cup slightly, as though toasting her misery, then looked away. A chill crept down her spine. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was being followed. She left quickly, pulling her hood over her head, her steps quickening. The streets were nearly empty, the rain masking the sound of footsteps behind her. But every time she turned a corner, she sensed it, the shadow that never strayed far. By the time she reached the hostel, her nerves were shredded. She slammed the door shut, bolted it, and leaned against the wall, panting. Her phone buzzed. A new message. She grabbed it with trembling hands. No name. No number. Just a message. "How does it feel, Emily? To be stripped of everything you thought was yours? This is just the beginning." Her heart nearly stopped. She stared at the screen, her breath coming in shallow gasps. Who had sent it? The police? Daniel? Or her mother? She threw the phone across the room, watching it smash against the wall, but the fear didn't leave. It sank deeper, wrapping around her ribs like a vice. The days blurred together. Emily couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every knock at the door made her flinch. Every stranger's glance felt like a threat. And through it all, the messages kept coming. You thought you were clever. You took what wasn't yours. Now it's your turn to lose. No name, never a clue, but she knew. Deep in her gut, she knew who it was. Her mother. The woman she had underestimated. The woman she had tried to discard like trash. Meanwhile, I sat comfortably thousands of miles away, sipping tea by the fire in the small cottage I had rented after leaving the city. Every message I sent was deliberate, timed to perfection. Emily didn't need prison bars to cage her. I was building a prison in her mind. The police inquiry was tightening. Daniel's testimony had painted her as the mastermind, and without his support, she stood alone. Soon, formal charges would follow. Fraud, theft, possibly laundering. Her name would be dragged through headlines. Her so-called friends would vanish. But I wasn't done yet. Not nearly. One morning, Emily woke to another message. This one was longer. Do you remember the lullabies I sang to you as a child? Do you remember how I held you when you cried? I gave you everything, Emily. Every ounce of love, every sacrifice, every dream I had. I gave them to you. And you sold it all. For a man who left you without a second thought. Tell me, was it worth it? Emily screamed, clutching the phone to her chest, tears streaming down her face. Stop it. Leave me alone. But I wasn't going to stop. Not until she understood. Not until she felt the full weight of betrayal, the same betrayal she had forced upon me. The walls around Emily were closing in. Her mind was unraveling. She began to talk to herself, whispering in the dark, begging the silence for answers. She was no longer the bold, arrogant daughter who had called to boast about her betrayal. She was a shell hollowed out by fear and guilt. And I, her mother, was only just beginning to take back what was mine. The courtroom was colder than Emily expected. The polished wooden benches, the stiff suits, the smell of paper and ink. It all pressed down on her chest like a weight she couldn't shake. Cameras flashed outside as reporters shouted her name, their voices echoing like vultures circling their prey. Emily Carter, accused of fraud, property theft, and financial manipulation. Emily, do you have any comment? Her face burned as she pushed through the crowd, her hood pulled low, her hands trembling. Once upon a time, she had walked into designer stores, head held high, believing the world belonged to her. Now strangers hurled insults as she passed. Thief! Disgrace! Gold digger! Inside, the trial began with the prosecutor's voice sharp as a knife. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is not a case of a misunderstanding. This is a case of greed. Emily Carter knowingly sold a property that did not belong to her. She pocketed the money, funneled it through hidden accounts, and left her mother, an elderly woman, to face ruin. This was no accident. This was calculated betrayal. Every word felt like a lash across her skin. Emily's lawyer tried to argue that she was misled, that Daniel had pressured her, that she thought the house was hers to sell. But Daniel sat across the room, his face a mask of innocence, shaking his head as if he were the victim. When he was called to the stand, he played his role perfectly. His voice was low, pained, trembling with false emotion. I loved her. I believed in her. But she lied to me. She said the house was hers, that everything was legal. I was blindsided when I learned the truth. I never would have gone along with it if I had known. Emily wanted to scream, to leap across the room and claw the lies from his throat. Instead, she sat frozen, her nails digging into her palms until she drew blood. Then came the evidence. Bank statements, transfers, documents with her signature. Each one stacked against her like bricks building a wall she could never climb. The jury's eyes grew harder with every piece shown. And then, almost cruelly, the prosecutor held up a photograph. It was of me, standing outside my beach house before it was sold, smiling in the sun, unaware of the knife my daughter would plunge into my back. This is the woman Emily Carter stole from. Her own mother. A woman who raised her, supported her, sacrificed for her. And how did Emily repay her? By taking the very roof over her head and selling it for quick cash. Gasps rippled through the room. Emily felt her world tilt, her stomach heaving. She whispered, No, this isn't how it was supposed to go. Across the ocean I was watching. I had made sure the evidence was airtight, the trail unmistakable. Every move Emily made had led her here, step by step, until she was standing on the edge of the cliff I had carved for her. The news spread like wildfire. Headlines screamed, Daughter betrays mother in property fraud scandal. From riches to ruin, Emily Carter's fall from grace. Husband testifies against wife in explosive trial. Friends stopped answering her calls. Distant relatives posted online about their shock and disappointment. Strangers hurled insults on social media, dissecting every detail of her life, mocking her downfall. Emily couldn't escape it. On TV, on the internet, in whispers on the street, her name was dirt. At night in her cell, she lay awake staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw my face. Not angry, not cruel, but calm. The calm of someone who had already won. And the messages didn't stop. Even inside, somehow they reached her. How does it feel, Emily, when the world sees you for what you really are? You wanted freedom. Instead, you gave me power. I warned you, betrayal has a price. She smashed the phone against the wall of her cell, screaming until her throat was raw. The guards dragged her back, but the laughter in her head wouldn't stop. The trial dragged on for weeks, each day heavier than the last. When the verdict finally came, Emily's legs barely held her as she stood before the judge. Emily Carter, you are found guilty of fraud and illegal property transfer. Sentencing will be scheduled for next month. Until then, you will remain in custody. Her knees buckled. The gavel struck. It was done. The courtroom buzzed with noise, reporters rushing out to spread the story. Daniel didn't even glance at her as he walked away, his arm around another woman she didn't recognize. The betrayal was complete. Back in my cottage, I poured myself a glass of wine, the fire crackling beside me. The world thought Emily had fallen by her own hand, and in a way she had. But I knew the truth. Every message, every seed of doubt, every whisper in the dark. I had been there, guiding her toward this ruin. And it wasn't over yet. Because the sentence had not been passed. And I still had one more card to play. The courtroom was silent when the judge entered for sentencing. Emily sat at the defense table, her hands cuffed, her hair unkempt, dark circles under her eyes. Weeks of trial had stripped her down to a shell of the woman she once was. No designer clothes. No jewelry. No smile. Just hollow eyes and trembling hands. The judge cleared his throat, his voice echoing through the chamber. Emily Carter, this court has found you guilty of fraud and unlawful sale of property. You exploited your family, falsified documents, and attempted to conceal the money through illicit means. After careful consideration, he paused, the silence unbearable. You are sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. The words crashed over her like waves pulling her under. 12 years. She felt her chest cave in, her breath shattering in shallow gasps. Around her the press scribbled furiously, reporters murmured, and the cameras clicked like gunfire. Her lawyer touched her arm, whispering, "We can appeal." But his voice was distant like a fading echo. Nothing mattered anymore. She turned her head, desperate for one friendly face. Daniel. Surely Daniel would still be there. But when her eyes scanned the benches, he wasn't there at all. Not a trace. Instead, a news alert buzzed on one of the reporters' phones, flashing across the screen just long enough for her to see it. A headline. A photograph. Daniel, smiling with the same woman she'd seen before, his arm tight around her waist. Daniel Ross moves on. New relationship announced amidst wife's trial. Emily's vision blurred, her stomach twisting until she thought she'd be sick. The man she sold everything for had not only abandoned her, he had erased her, moved on without hesitation. The betrayal was complete. When they dragged her back to her cell, Emily collapsed onto the hard cot, clutching her head, rocking back and forth. Tears soaked the thin blanket, her whispers fractured. Why? Why is this happening? What did I do to deserve this? That night, as the prison went quiet, another message found her. She didn't know how, and that made it worse. You gave everything to Daniel. And look where it left you. I gave everything to you, Emily. And look how you repaid me. Now you know. Now you understand. She pressed the phone against her chest, sobbing. Mom, please stop. But I didn't stop. I couldn't. My plan wasn't just to take away her freedom. It was to make her feel the same hollow loneliness she had forced on me. Every piece of her world had to burn. Her wealth, her marriage, her reputation, and finally her spirit. The weeks inside prison blurred together. But for Emily, time did not dull the pain. It sharpened it. She was no longer the arrogant daughter who believed she could outsmart anyone. She was just another inmate, stripped of dignity, tormented by whispers from guards who recognized her from the news. "Isn't that the one who sold her mom's house?" they'd murmur. Even her husband ditched her. Pathetic. At meals, other women stared. Some mocked her. Some pitied her. Emily stopped eating, stopped speaking. She spent most days curled in the corner of her cell, staring at the wall. But I wasn't done yet. One evening, as the prison lights dimmed, a guard slid an envelope under her door. Emily frowned, picking it up with shaking hands. Inside was a single photograph. It was me, smiling, standing in front of a new beach house. On the back, a note. "You thought you destroyed me, but while you rot in here, I've rebuilt. Stronger, happier, free. And you? You're exactly where you belong." Emily dropped the photo, her scream echoing off the cement walls. She clawed at her hair, slammed her fists against the floor, her body convulsing with rage and grief. The guards rushed in, restraining her, but she barely noticed. She had broken completely. And I smiled as I watched the ocean waves crash outside my window, the fire warm at my back. My revenge wasn't about money or houses anymore. It was about balance. About showing her that betrayal cuts both ways. Emily wanted me powerless. Instead, she was the one caged, abandoned, forgotten. And I was free. But there was still one thing left to do. Because revenge wasn't complete until she knew beyond doubt that it had always been me. The nights in prison were the worst. The air was heavy, thick with despair and sweat. Every sound, a cough, a distant cry, the clanging of bars, pierced Emily's nerves like needles. Sleep rarely came. And when it did, the nightmares followed. But one night, something different arrived. A guard called her name, his voice low. "Carter, you got mail." Emily dragged herself to the bars. Her hands trembled as she took the thick envelope. No return address. She ripped it open, her eyes devouring the pages inside. The first line froze her blood. "Emily, my sweet girl, did you really think this was all just coincidence?" Her breath caught. It was her mother's handwriting. Her stomach twisted as she read. "Every step you took, I guided it. Every document, every account, every thread of evidence, they were all placed where I knew you would trip. The police didn't come for you by chance. I made sure they came. Daniel didn't turn on you alone. I gave him reason to. And every message you've received, every word that's haunted you, they came from me." The page slipped from her fingers. Her knees hit the concrete floor. Her hands shook so violently she could barely pick up the next sheet. But she had to. She couldn't stop now. "When you sold my house, when you took my car, you thought you had destroyed me. But I was stronger than you knew. While you celebrated your little victory, I was already weaving your downfall. Daniel was easy to break. His loyalty was only as strong as his greed. And you, Emily, you were so sure of yourself, so blind to the trap tightening around you." Tears blurred her vision. Her mother had orchestrated everything. Every humiliation, every betrayal, every sleepless night. It hadn't been fate. It had been her. She turned the last page. "I want you to understand one thing before the end. I didn't do this because you sold my house. I didn't do this because of the money. I did this because you betrayed me. I gave you my life, my love, my everything. And you threw it away for a man who discarded you like garbage. Now you know what it feels like. Now you know what it means to be abandoned." At the bottom, one final line burned into her soul. "I still love you, but I will never forgive you." Emily let out a broken scream, crumpling the pages in her fists. Her cellmate stirred, muttering for her to shut up, but Emily didn't hear. The words echoed in her head, louder than the pounding of her heart. It was her. It had always been her. The next day, she asked for the prison phone. Her hand shook as she dialed a number she hadn't called in months. It rang once, twice, then clicked. "Hello." The voice was calm, warm, familiar. "Mom," Emily whispered, her throat raw. A pause. Then softly, "Emily." Tears flooded her eyes. "Why? Why would you do this to me? You're my mother." Her mother's voice didn't waver. "Yes, and you were my daughter. But daughters don't sell their mothers' lives to the highest bidder. Daughters don't leave their mothers behind without a word." Emily's sobs cracked through the receiver. I thought he loved me. I thought it was the only way. And now you see." her mother said, her tone icy but not cruel. He never loved you. He left you as quickly as you left me. You betrayed blood for a man who wasn't worth the dirt on your shoes. Emily clutched the phone tighter, her forehead pressed against the cold wall. Please, please forgive me. I can't do this. I can't live like this. Her mother's silence stretched long, unbearable. Finally she spoke. Forgiveness is not mine to give anymore. You chose your path. Now you'll walk it. The line clicked dead. Emily slid down the wall, the phone dangling from her hand. Her chest heaved, her eyes burning. The truth was worse than prison. Worse than betrayal. It was knowing that her own mother had built the cage around her. Not out of hate but out of justice. From that day on, Emily was different. She stopped pleading with the guards. She stopped trying to talk to the other inmates. She carried herself like a ghost, hollow and fragile, haunted by every word in that letter. And I, her mother, finally felt the peace I had been craving. My revenge was nearly complete. She had lost everything. But one final act remained. The act that would ensure she never forgot who had truly beaten her. The prison gates loomed like iron teeth as Emily shuffled out, 12 years later. She was older now, her beauty stripped away by gray walls and sleepless nights. Her hair hung limp, streaked with gray, her eyes sunken. Freedom should have felt like salvation, but to her it was another kind of prison. The world had moved on and she had nowhere to go. No family waiting. No husband. No friends. No home. She carried a small bag with all her belongings, barely more than the clothes on her back. The world outside was louder, faster, harsher than she remembered. Cars honked, strangers brushed past her, and no one recognized the name, Emily Carter. Not because they had forgotten, because her name had become a warning, a story whispered like a curse. She found a bench near the bus stop and sat, her hands trembling as she held a piece of paper the release officer had given her. An address. A halfway house where she was expected to stay. But Emily couldn't move. Her legs felt like lead. That's when she saw it. A man in a dark coat standing across the street. His face was unfamiliar, but his presence sent a chill through her bones. He didn't move. He just watched. And then, slowly, he lifted his hand and pointed at the envelope in her lap. Her pulse quickened. She opened it, expecting papers. Instead, inside was a single note. You're free now, Emily. Free to live the life you chose. But remember, you are never truly free from me. Her breath caught. She looked up, but the man was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Emily staggered to her feet, her heart racing. She knew it was her mother. Somehow, someway she had left her mark once again. The next weeks were brutal. The halfway house was crowded, noisy, filled with women who had their own battles. No one cared about her story except when they mocked her for it. Ain't you the one who sold her own mama out? One woman sneered. Emily shrank into herself, eating alone, sleeping with her back to the wall. And still the messages came. Slipped under her door. Left on her bunk. Scrawled on scraps of paper. How's freedom treating you? 12 years. Did you learn anything? You can't erase me. Emily's mind unraveled faster than before. She woke up screaming, drenched in sweat, whispering her mother's name like a prayer and a curse all at once. Finally, one night she broke. She left the halfway house and wandered through the city streets, barefoot, disheveled, her eyes wild. She ended up at the docks, the cold wind whipping her hair across her face. The water roared below, black and endless. And there, waiting at the edge of the pier, was another envelope. Her hand shook as she picked it up. Inside was a photograph, her mother, older now but radiant, standing in front of the beach, smiling with a peace Emily had never known. On the back, a single sentence. Revenge is complete when you destroy not the body but the soul. Emily crumpled to her knees, the photo clutched in her fists, sobs tearing through her chest. She screamed into the night, but no one came. No one cared. And in that moment, she understood the full weight of her mother's revenge. It wasn't the trial. It wasn't the prison. It wasn't even the betrayal of Daniel or the loss of money. It was this. Being alive but utterly empty. Emily stayed on that pier until the sun rose, her body shaking with exhaustion. When the light finally touched her face, she whispered, broken, "I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." But no answer came. 'Cause I had already won. Long ago. Back in my quiet beach house, Far from the chaos of the city, I watched the tide roll in with a calm smile. Emily's story was over, though she still walked the earth. Her pride was gone, her strength shattered, her soul hollow. And me? I had rebuilt. Stronger than before. I had proven the lesson she would never forget. Betrayal always comes full circle. For 12 years I had waited for this day. And now, with the waves crashing gently against the shore, I finally felt peace. Revenge was not loud. It was not quick. It was patient, sharp, and merciless. And it was mine. Friends, how did you like my story? And from which city are you listening? Let's meet in the comments. I eagerly wait for each and every one of your messages. If you enjoyed this story, you can support me through super thanks so I can continue bringing you more amazing life stories. Your support means the world to me. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Right now you can see 2 new life stories on your screen, and I highly recommend you watch them. There are many more incredible stories on my channel that I know you'll love. Don't forget to subscribe so we can meet again in the next life story. As always, with love and respect, take good care of yourself.